So I'm Ranan Lachman. I'm the founder and CEO of Pley, and I'm here to talk with you about how large organizations are getting into subscription. So let's start with a show of hands. How many here are employees of large organizations that are looking into subscriptions? Fantastic. We have some gorillas in the room. How many of you are entrepreneurs, companies that are running subscriptions? Very nice. We have some opportunities here. And maybe last tricky question I realized last night. How many here realize that all the male CEOs of subscription companies have a beard? Maybe Liz, you should add it next year for the deck. You run a subscription company, get a beard. So just a little bit background of what made me suitable to talk to you about getting into subscription. I'm a proud father of 2 kids. My son Tal is 9, my daughter Danielle is 6-year-old, and what I was looking for her is a service that I couldn't find that allows her to be a princess 1 month and a natural explorer in another month, and I just couldn't find it, so I started Pley. And Pley, our goal is to enrich and delight the next generation by delivering the right activity to the right child over their childhood. And we do that by partnering with the big gorillas. So we're partnering with the big brands. So we work with Disney, we work with National Geographic, we work with Mattel, we work with MoMA, and we create subscription boxes. Like those 2 that you see here, this is the Disney Princess one. So if you can see the purple, pink box turns into a castle, and the Star Wars box, the black box, that turns into this X-Wing plane, and all of that. There was one big idea thing before is how we take the box and make it into a toy and basically create zero waste packaging. So what we're going to walk through is why big companies are going into subscription. As you heard yesterday from John, subscription is a big business and it's just growing. And when that kind of business is kind of showing early kind of signs of scale, the large companies are eyeing it to see how we can get more money out of this new channel. And when we see some of the players out there, including Dollar Shave Club, Blue Apron, Ipsy, getting to very large sizes, critical mass, and we see indication of actual valuation with the $1 billion of Unilever buying Dollar Shave Club, we start seeing more and more of those large organizations launching their own subscription. So Sephora obviously have their own subscription, Starbucks getting into it. GM announced earlier this year that for a nominal price of $1,500 per month, you can get access to their Cadillacs in New York, and Whole Foods is also going to get into subscription pretty soon. So let's talk about what is kind of the typical evaluation process of the large companies. So usually it starts with one of their kind of mid-level manager that is a subscriber to one of the services that are here in this room that basically raise that idea. And then they raise it to their supervisors, and surprise, surprise, they kill it. So then 6 months after, there is another manager in a different department that basically comes with the same idea. Let's do it. And this time, the same thing happens, right? Their supervisor kills it, and the same thing kind of happens over the next 2 years for multiple reasons. Maybe it goes to strategy, planning, etc. There's a process to look at it, but really nothing happens until your competitors actually launch a subscription. And then what happens? That's exactly what happens. Everybody gets to panic mode, and management kind of look at it a little bit differently, and then the decision is that now we must do subscription, and now we get the go-ahead, and let's do it. So what we're going to review now is 3 case studies from different industries that will show you how different players kind of approach a subscription. Hopefully you can get some ideas from that. So we start with the fashion industry. So we all know Stitchfix, a pretty large organization now, about $700 million in revenue, that basically disrupt the way we get, try, and buy clothing. Started with women clothing, then moved to men, and now moving to kids. By the way, all this data is basically come from internal resources. So their partners, some of their brands, et cetera, watching how they're growing over the years. And after about 4 years since they launched, 3 of their brands and kind of partners started to look into it and basically emulate the same kind of concept, right? In the beginning, it looks kind of weird. Why should anybody want to get 5 different things that they don't know exactly what they're buying? Much better go to retail and buy exactly what we want. And then they basically tested it. So let's see what's the results of those tests. So all those 3 failed, and basically they stopped doing it. And only now, when they see that it's really scaling to something that is much bigger than originally kind of planned, they're doing it again. And the reason for that there are several reasons for that. First of all, Guerillas are Guerillas because they know how to do at least one thing really well, and they grew to make it successful, and therefore they're a lot more risk-averse to try new things. And the second thing that they've seen is that there is obviously competing resources within the organization of how to go about subscription. And when you have limited resources, obviously you do the things that you know how to do. And the third element was like poor execution. So obviously, whatever we try to do the best. In this case, the first company that was trying to do it basically took 50 employees of theirs, and they played the customers. And those boxes that came to them came with items that are of the brand that they're already working in, i.e. they already have some of it, and therefore they got kind of the false negative of it's probably not worth, to get those boxes. The second company basically tested it with sending it to all senior management in the organization, a lot more people. But senior management is not your typical customer, right? Because they obviously probably earning a little bit more and basically get a different view than a typical customer. So that obviously led to the wrong kind of decision then. Second case study is from the toy industry, a very, very large manufacturer that owns a lot of IPs, has a huge marketing budget, and a lot of channels that they are distributing already their products. They studied subscription very seriously for 3 years, strategy and planning, did a lot of work about this, and decided to run a test, as they should. So their test basically said, let's ship 3,000 boxes. Let's take 2 product managers internally and give them all the resources that they need, including designers, including IT, and let's take close to 2 years until we launch that. And they spent about $2.4 million to do that. So how that fared for them? So it was a nightmare to execute from their perspective. And the reason is that when you work in a very large organization, you have already e-commerce platform, you try to integrate subscription, the things don't merit, the same day. And what happens is those project managers try to add features that e-commerce didn't have, and they were fighting the IT to get those features. So eventually they launched a product that didn't have half of the features, with a lot of fighting internally. And the cost per box at the end of the day was about $670 loss per box for that organization. Obviously, those are not unit economics that any one of us here, entrepreneurs, will want to work with. But the reality was that they realized from this test that subscription is a valid channel for them. It's actually an exciting channel, and the customer feedback was fantastic. So they decided to partner with a dedicated company that can do the subscription for them. In this case, it was us, and currently we're shipping boxes for them. Each one of them is profitable for them, and it's profitable for us. Last case study is from the shaving industry, which you're familiar with. So in 2011, 62% of the shaving market was actually owned by Gillette, obviously a huge market player. And then a little company out of LA came out, Dollar Shave Club, and launched a viral video. The story, kind of everybody knows that. 5 years later, more than $200 million in revenue. Gillette responded to that. Took them a little bit of a while. Started with legal action, and then realized they need to do their own thing, and launched Gillette Shave Club. They launched it a little bit differently than what we kind of would have expected. They used their existing channels, which are retail channels that they know how to do it. So it's the Target, the Walmart, the Amazons of the world, which basically forced them to have a subscription of much higher cost for the consumer. And the result of that, Currently, Dollar Shave Club have more than 3 million subscribers. Gillette has less than 500,000 subscribers. The market share of Gillette keeps on dropping. Although they're on a volume dollar size, they're higher. It's keep on dropping also because of other competitors like Harry's and other kind of got into the market. Their prices are still higher than the other online subscriptions. And now they're iterating with that, and recently they launched the Gillette On Demand, which tried to answer that. So if we take those 3 kind of case studies and kind of put them into what do you need to ask yourself when you want to launch a subscription if you're a large organization. So the first is, what are we trying to achieve with subscription? Is it just increasing revenue, or is it something bigger here that we can actually take advantage of? Is it just another e-commerce channel for us, where it should be in the organization, the subscription itself? And I would say that it's much larger than an e-commerce. It's a direct-to-consumer channel that allows you to get a lot of information about your consumers and cross-sell to it other products that you have. Do we have the logistics, the customer service, the BI expertise to do that? Do we know how to do dunning management? Most companies don't, right? So we need to make sure that we have the internal resources and expertise to do that. And if we don't have the internal resources and expertise to do that, how much will it cost us to bring the experts in and to hire those people from potentially other organizations to do that internally, okay? And if you know your own organization, you probably need to take that amount and double it to get the reality of what it's going to be over time. An important, very important question and you've seen it from yesterday, is do we have the right DNA to do subscription? It's not about putting product in a box and shipping it. That's easy. It's about, do we have the DNA to create the community and find those advocates that will support that subscription and create that growth over time? And that's a different skill set and different mentality that is potentially you don't have internally. And the last question, which I think is really, really important, is, especially after you've seen those case studies, what does failure means to us when we launch it internally? Like, how much time do we lose if we don't get it right from time to market and from market shares that other can basically come in and do it better than us? So those are the questions, obviously different answers for different industries and different companies. So let me just leave you with like 3 kind of closing thoughts, because I'm sure that there will be questions after this session. The first one, personalization is key when you're doing subscription. And it was mentioned yesterday. It's really, really important. Really important to understand who is your customers, what they're looking for. Can I deliver exactly what they're looking for? And if the answer is yes, then there's a fertile ground to do subscription. If we don't know how to do it, that means that we might be less successful than we can. The next one is that subscription is here to stay and is going to grow. So my kids growing in an environment that they get to our house every day, boxes. Some of those boxes actually have their name on it. So they're already accustomed to the convenience of getting things in, and obviously there will be subscriber consumer for a long time, and this generation is a lazier generation than the previous one in this regard, which is fantastic for the people that's sitting in this room. The third element is about the inherent elements of Guerillas, right? Guerillas are called Guerillas in a sense because they've done something right, but they build those infrastructure and their processes that make them slower, and they make them kind of risk-averse because they have a lot more to risk than the startups that can launch and basically try different things and test different things very quickly. And in a sense, many of them don't have the right DNA to do subscription right. You can do subscription, but the question is, can you do it right? So all of those kind of data point and the case studies that I showed you kind of leads me to recommend to the Guerillas in the room that the go-to strategy that is worthwhile considering is basically partner. Partner with somebody that can do the subscription for you to start with. See if your product can grow and become a viable subscription by its own with less resources that you will invest in internally with a shorter period of time. And then if that works for you, then you can build it yourself or you can acquire. That's it. I thank you for for being with me for this. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.